So Dwayne Johnson finally responds to the whole Black Adam thing and Black Adam's future in James Gunn and Peter Safran's new DC universe. James Gunn teases even more DC universe, including Deathstroke, the new DCU being inspired by the Justice League animated series, even Young Justice. We've got news about other Elseworld stories that will be happening in the future. Zachary Levi teases his continuation as Shazam. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if there's more news coming out by the time you're watching this video. Plus, there is more news in this video, but I'm forgetting the headlines right at the beginning. But if you couldn't tell, there is more news every freaking day. So starting off with none other than Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Black Adam. And if you're wondering why this is kind of a big deal, well, there's interesting things within the message he put, but also he has remained very quiet ever since Henry Cavill was recast. You know, the news of a new Superman coming our way, he's just been radio silent. He hasn't even said that Black Adam was coming to HBO Max when it did. It's just been, okay, so what's going on, Dwayne? And now he has released this message. My passionate friends, I wanted to give you a long-awaited Black Adam update regarding the character's future in the new DC universe. James Gunn and I connected, and Black Adam will not be in their first chapter of storytelling. However, DC and $7 have agreed to continue exploring the most valuable ways Black Adam can be utilized in future DC, keyword, DC Multiverse chapters. Very interesting. James and I have known each other for many years and have always rooted for each other to succeed. It's no different now, and I will always root for DC and Marvel to win and win big. You guys know me, I have very thick skin, and you can always count on me to be direct with my words. These decisions made by James and DC leadership represent their vision of DCU through their creative lens. After 15 years of relentless hard work to finally make Black Adam, I'm very proud of the film we delivered for fans worldwide. I will always look back on the fan reaction to Black Adam with tremendous gratitude, humility, and love. We did great. To my very passionate and vocal Black Adam / superhero genre fans, I love you, thank you, and I will always listen to you and do my best to deliver and entertain you. What a hell of a month. Now we all need some Terramana. Have a productive week and happy holidays to you and your families. So, a bit to unpack there, honestly, because some people are taking this in various different ways, that this could be a bit of PR speak, you know, or exaggerated, you know, press release talk, if you will, with regards to him coming back as Black Adam. Now, I completely understand that theory, but I also understand the theory for those who are like, no, he said that, you know, DC and $7 are exploring ways, as he literally put it here, to continue exploring the most valuable ways Black Adam can be utilized in future DC Multiverse chapters. So let's briefly break this down. He said that Black Adam will not be a part of James Gunn and Peter Safran's new DC universe. We know we're getting a goddamn new DC universe. We're getting a new Superman. We're basically getting phases like Marvel's phases. It's a cohesive universe. They're calling it chapters, as Dwayne is saying here. Now, multiverse. He used the word multiverse in that message. You know, he says the most valuable ways Black Adam can be utilized in future DC multiverse chapters. So when we take into account, and just listen to this and entertain this for a minute, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, you know, Black Adam not being in the first official DCU chapter, perhaps that's because, you know, he and other DCEU characters might not exist in the DCU, James Gunn's DCU. But when they introduce a multiverse chapter, then maybe they could. You know, that's plausible. And the way I see it, if Black Adam, Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam, isn't in that first James Gunn, Peter Safran DCU chapter, the first slate of movies, and let's just say hypothetically that the first official DCU movie, so the time you'll be seeing it in your local movie theater or wherever you're going, is like 3 or 4 years away. And let's hypothetically say that universe is kicking off with James Gunn's Superman movie, the new Superman that isn't Henry Cavill. That's at least 3 to 4 years away, like if we're lucky, right? So considering that's like 3 to 4 years away until the first official DCU movie, and then you take into account that a phase, or should I say the DCU slate, that first aka chapter, will probably last 3 to 4 years. For example, again, I know I'm making comparisons to Marvel, and people will be like, what if it's not exactly like Marvel? I feel like it's safe to assume that in these chapters, in an 8 to 10 year plan, there's going to be arcs, similar to that of MCU phases. So there's going to be a few movies. So let's now assume that that first chapter, starting with Superman in 3 to 4 years' time, lasts, I don't know, anywhere from 3 to 4 years again, because you're going to start with Superman, and it's going to be like another project and another project, so 3 movies, or maybe 4, before we enter chapter 2 of the DCU 8 to 10 year plan. The thing is, if you're adding up the math there, Dwayne Johnson, by the time, well, and considering, again, like I've just laid out the facts, we're probably not getting that first movie for a few years, right? And then the first chapter, which Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam isn't a part of, will last a few years with, you know, a few projects fleshing out that first chapter of DCU. Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam, Dwayne himself, will be pushing 60 at that time. It's just kind of adding in more food for thought as to if he is actually really coming back. Now, I'm not saying he isn't, because in this 8 to 10 year plan, you know, he's not a part of the first chapter, so I don't think we're going to see him for the next X amount of years if we're going off of that. But if they do lead up to a Crisis-esque event of some kind, then yes, like whether this is a soft reboot or not, let's just assume, hypothetically, hard reboot. They can still bring in the DCEU legacy characters, including Cavill if he wanted to, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, Black Adam, to that kind of event. And this could all link back to James Gunn's comments of when he addressed the whole Henry Cavill Superman recasting. If you guys slightly remember, he said, "We're big fans and we talked about a number of exciting possibilities to work together in the future." Now again, a lot of people are looking at that as like, oh yeah, you know, you've not got the job, but maybe we'll have something for you in the future, but it never does, kind of thing. But maybe in this case, that, you know, if you want to look into it with this theory, that being said to Henry Cavill, and now Dwayne Johnson saying DC and $7 have agreed to continue exploring the most valuable ways Black Adam can be utilized in the future DC Multiverse chapters, that they could come back in some kind of event. It does sound like in one way, oh yeah, we're going to keep continuing to explore ways we could do Black Adam down the line. Henry Cavill, we've got exciting opportunities that we're exploring. Not now, but like several years, maybe if there's an event. You get the gist. I do want to heavily stress that is just total speculation. Maybe Dwayne Johnson will appear as Black Adam sooner than that. But again, I don't see DCEU movies running simultaneously alongside these new DCU movies. So what I'm trying to say there is when that first official DCU movie, hypothetically, let's just say Superman, James Gunn's written Superman movie, finally comes to your local movie theater. You're buying a ticket, you're going to see it. I don't really believe there's going to be DCEU movies releasing as that first chapter unfolds, as that first slate unfolds. You may believe otherwise, but I do truly believe that when they've embraced that new DC universe, whether they're keeping some characters from the previous DCEU in that, if you're believing it's more of a soft reboot, or even if it's a hard reboot, I don't think we're going to see them unless they're incorporated in the soft reboot kind of way, or until maybe they come back in a Crisis-esque event, as maybe Dwayne Johnson could mean with regards to exploring how Black Adam can be utilized in future DC Multiverse chapters. Now, obviously, this new DC universe, the reason why I say it's like a few years away before it actually fully kicks off and fully boots, is because, well, it is. You know, you can't just like start a Superman movie tomorrow and then enter production right away. That's why it is at least 3 to 4 years away, I would say. And we've got the remaining slate of the DCEU. The Flash movie, Blue Beetle, Shazam 2, Aquaman 2, and I know there's some theories with some people saying, well, they could make another Aquaman movie, they could make another Black Adam movie before the new DCU kicks off with this hypothetical first movie of James Gunn's Superman. I don't really see them greenlighting any more brand new DCEU movies, so the DCEU universe, before we get into that first DCU movie, which, let's just say, Superman. I just don't really see that happening. I think they're letting these ones play out, the DCEU ones, and then they're going to gear up into that new DC universe. Again, doesn't rule out every character in the future from a Crisis event, or if there's some characters being kept on in the DCU, that's still like, I know I keep saying it every video, it's still somewhat up in the air, especially when you take into account what Zachary Levi said. And that is what we're going to move on to now, because this just kind of makes the waters even more murkier, as again, we kind of keep going over in every video. So a fan expressed concern on Twitter, quote tweeting another user, basically saying that it sucks for them that Zachary Levi won't be Shazam anymore. But Zachary Levi quote tweeted this and said, "Oh, I really wouldn't go believing everything you see on the internet. I'm Gucci, Ash. We all Gucci." Very interesting. This can be taken as usual. It's kind of like a fork in the road. Where do you go? Does this mean the whole theory of the soft reboot is still a possibility? Because we went over that heavily in yesterday's video with James Gunn saying, "I keep seeing this untrue theory. We're not recasting everyone except the Suicide Squad." Option A being, we're not recasting everyone except the Suicide Squad because we're rebooting everything, so that's an untrue theory. Or we're not recasting everyone except the Suicide Squad because we're not only keeping them, we're also keeping this person, that person, we're getting rid of that person, I'm sorry, and that person, but also we're keeping this person. That's the thing. And now Zachary Levi has added to the speculation with regards to, "Oh, I really wouldn't go believing everything you see on the internet. I'm Gucci, Ash. We all Gucci." So, does that mean he is one of those characters who could be, again, Marvel comparison, Netflix Daredevil over to MCU, so DCEU continuity over to the new DC universe, but obviously with some changes there maybe? Possibly. Or it could be that he's been told, just like The Rock, just like maybe Cavill with these exciting possibilities, that even though, yes, there is a new DCU, there is a new Superman, there's an 8 to 10 year plan with chapters, aka phases, and whatever the heck they're going to do from there on out, Lobo possibly with Momoa, but we're going to somehow fit you in, maybe in a crisis event. I don't know. So, let me know your thoughts on that. Again, some people are adding in the theory here, yes, we've got these remaining DCEU movies, and then, like most of us believe, then they're going to kick off with the new DCU, for example, Superman, but some are believing that maybe Shazam, they will greenlight, as I said a second ago, I don't know about that, but they might still greenlight a third movie to kind of cap off that Shazam trilogy, since perhaps we've got another 3 to 4 years until that first official chapter starts in the DCU with Superman. So let me know what you think of all of that. I don't want to really speculate too much more on this because I feel like I've exhausted my opinions on the possibilities of a soft reboot or a total reset, and now just offering something else on the table with regards to maybe 1 or 2 other greenlit DCEU movies in the interim before, you know, we get that first official DC Universe movie, for example, Superman. And one thing I will add with regards to a bit of credit to that theory and speculation is if they do greenlight 1 or 2 more DCEU movies, which is interesting because it is obviously a universe they're somewhat leaving behind, at least whatever they could do in a new movie could allow that merge to this new universe to happen within the plot of the movie. I know people are going to be like, but isn't that what The Flash is for? No. The Flash movie was starting off a soft reboot into the universe that's never going to be now. For example, Michael Keaton's Batman, he was going to carry on into Batgirl. That was already filmed. It got canned. There was going to be a solo Batman Beyond Keaton movie. That got canned. So that Flash movie, yes, even though it is like a iteration and version of Flashpoint that was meant to herald in a new soft reboot for the old regime of Warner Brothers, that new direction isn't applicable to this new DC universe. But again, with the theory that some people were putting forward, if they still maybe made a third Shazam, maybe they could find an excuse for how this could, you know, give an excuse as to why there's such a big change and a new Superman and everything. Let's now move on to the teases of the DC universe, because every day it seems like there genuinely is something worth talking about with what James Gunn says on one of his social medias. So this is across Twitter, Mastodon. So with regards to James Gunn and Peter Safran's DC universe and inspiration for it, this fan asked, "Hey James, you and Peter must be having tons of fun planning things out for the DC universe, other than the Twitter crazies. Were any of the animated DC shows like Justice League Unlimited and Young Justice an inspiration for you when planning out this universe?" And he replied, "Definitely," which is just interesting to know. I don't really know what too much to say about this. Obviously, anything Justice League, from a comic book to an animated movie or even previous movies with those characters in it in some way, shape, or form, you can always draw inspirations and qualities and traits or whatever out of it, even if you're not cloning it, obviously. So I would love to know your thoughts on that. What do you think of Justice League Unlimited and Young Justice being a potential inspiration for what's to come? The Young Justice part really intrigues me with regards to what we're going to talk about with Deathstroke later, and something I want to talk about with the Titans and stuff. Now this next one very much so intrigues me, and James Gunn answers something in a way that doesn't like technically outright confirm it, but with regards to Deathstroke in a new DC universe, my god, this could mean so many things. So a user says, any plans for Deathstroke in the DCU? So James Gunn's new DCU, will there be Deathstroke? He says, could be, ... Now, I don't see why he put could be if that wasn't true, but at the same time, maybe I am reading too into it, and he's just like, it could be, because I'm not saying no, but I haven't committed to it right now, so in theory, it could be, there could be a Deathstroke. I would like to think, in my selfish desires for wanting to see Deathstroke, that could be means, he's teasing could be, because basically I am working on that. And I really hope that's the case. It's just, again, another big tease, because he didn't even have to reply to this. If he didn't want to give anything away, that's something to take into account as well. He just didn't have to reply. The fact that he said could be ... I lean more towards that he is working on something like that. Now, speculation time. I'll try and keep this brief, but Deathstroke in the comics, this is one thing I think some modern fans misinterpret. I'm not putting everyone or you right now in that camp. I'm just saying a lot of people think, Deathstroke's a Batman villain, but no, he's like ingrained in Titans lore. Now, I am wondering if this could mean good things for the DC universe with Titans, but also if hypothetically what I'm saying is a possibility with regards to the DC universe having Titans in it, and maybe if Deathstroke is happening, how those two could be linked together. It could also link to the wider perspective of what's going on with characters like the DCU Bruce Wayne. So let me lay this out. Superman, as we know from James Gunn, yes, it's a recast, but it's not, and he's explicitly said this a few times, it is not an origin story. So I think that's going to be the same thing for a few other characters, like the DCU new casting of Bruce Wayne. Now we know that James Gunn has said that Bruce Wayne is playing a big role in the DCU. Again, I doubt we're going to see a Batman origin story. I insanely doubt that. It's self-explanatory. Superman's not an origin story, so I think Bruce is already been out there for some time to a certain extent. So I wonder, given the fact that we are, and we know we're getting Reeves The Batman trilogy, releasing alongside this new DC universe as those movies are coming out. The reason why I say that is because we haven't even got the Batman Chapter 2 yet, and by the third film, you would at least have the first movie of the DC universe, so potentially Superman. And as a result, a lot of fans are still wondering, okay, so since we're probably going to likely have a Matt Reeves movie still coming out with Robert Pattinson's Batman, how are they going to do the DCU Bruce? Are they going to do a solo movie? Is it going to kind of pop up here and there? Well, if we're getting Deathstroke, perhaps, if that is the case, again, this is all speculation, going off of James Gunn's could be, ... And if we are getting a universe where there's not an origin with this new Superman, well, this could be how we see our new DCU Bruce, already into his vigilante career, having a Robin, so sometime into it, and potentially a Titans team already maybe being out there. And as a result, if we see things like with the Titans characters or Deathstroke, that could be how we see the DCU Bruce Wayne. Like, he would pop up in these projects, like, I don't know what Deathstroke would be involved in, or the Titans, but you can see what I mean. If he's already at a point of where, Deathstroke is out there, Deathstroke's heavily ingrained in the Titans lore, I think James Gunn, being a huge DC Comics fan, would follow the more Deathstroke Titans connection. Then that's how I think we would see Bruce Wayne established, maybe popping up in roles like that, and then eventually really popping up like hardcore style with a DCU solo Batman movie at some point, but mainly popping up as, supporting roles in other movies. I could go on about that for the next century, but I'm going to probably stop the speculation off there. But let me know what you think, ultimately winding it back to Deathstroke maybe being in the works, with James Gunn saying could be. Okay, so up next is, I believe, James Gunn responding on Mastodon, and I've actually had quite a few people comment this in live streams and comment sections, so it's interesting that it's popped up for me to talk about today. And people were saying, or have been asking me, could there be another thing of where James Gunn's movies or this new DC universe gets interfered with by David Zaslav or, executives, to the point of kind of what happened in the Snyderverse, right? There was heavy interruptions and changes made and forcibly made back then. So this fan asked James Gunn, as long as the studio doesn't override you and your directors at every turn, I for one have confidence that you'll actually be making decisions for the DCU that I can get on board with. In my opinion, worth exactly nothing, it was studio interference that derailed the previous attempt at a DCU. It wouldn't surprise me to learn that Mr. Johns was quite frustrated. Now James Gunn replies, the position is different than it was with Zack, etc. Peter and I are the heads of DC Studios. The only studio interference would be from us. And this is kind of what I replied. They are the DC Studios heads. They are the people who are making the decisions. But that being said, I think it would be naive of me to fully subscribe to what James Gunn said right here. It's interesting because what he's saying is entirely true. But no matter what, let's just introduce the hypothetical scenario of, yes, he is basically the Kevin Feige alongside Peter Safran of the DCU. But when launching this new DCU slate, let's just say Superman, the first official movie, tanks. The second movie, tanks. The third movie, tanks at the box office. You're telling me that David Zaslav wouldn't, say, Mr. Gunn, I'm gonna basically put my executive interruption into your universe now. So that's the thing. You can't rule it out as an absolute possibility. But no matter what, the new regime with the hiring of James Gunn and Peter Safran as co-heads of DC Studios, it is true that the position is different than what it was with Zack. So, as for the larger and more consistent interruptions, especially in this new universe's infancy, that is entirely under his control. So this next one, I thought I may as well mention. It's something we kind of already knew because James Gunn did say that we would be hearing more about the DC Universe slate in the new year. So everyone assumed January. And as a result, this user here says, how many projects will be announced in January, more or less? And James Gunn replied, a few. Which, is cool. We don't really know exactly the format of this, if there's going to be like kind of, like showcases for Xbox, PlayStation. Is there going to be a cool little mini, not really a DC fandom, but like a mini showcase of James Gunn talking about it? Or is he just going to tweet it out? That seems like fair enough. I actually do like the transparency on Twitter, even though some of it can be annoyingly ambiguous. I do think it would be a bit, I don't know if the word would be unprofessional to kind of just be like, these are the first movies we're working on, to put it out on Twitter. I prefer kind of like a, him sat down, some lights on him, and he's talking about, hey guys, this is what we've been doing, me and Peter Safran, this, that, and the other, and we're not going to announce everything over the next 8 to 10 years, because obviously that's some of it's 8 to 10 years away, but for the first part of the chapter 1 of the DC universe, we've obviously told you about Superman. We're getting a new actor behind that. I'm writing it. We haven't got a director yet, but that's the first movie. Now the second project and the third project is this. So I think we can get 3 to 4 if we're lucky, but I'm probably betting on 3 for now. Maybe it's going to give more transparency in January on other things. The whole question of, okay, but what is this new universe? Is there going to be a Peacemaker in that universe? What is going on with other things? All kinds of things like that. So yeah, the fact that he said we're hearing about a few, kind of something we already knew. It's, again, ambiguous. It's nothing that we didn't really know before, but I thought I'd bring it up anyway. Let me know your thoughts as to what we could hear about in January as well, and the extent of it. Up next is another response from James Gunn on something that we kind of already know about, but at the same time, I do think it's worth bringing up just so everyone is aware of everything. So a fan asks, are you open to producing any Elseworlds DC projects that aren't set in the DCU? James Gunn said that is actively happening. And it is. Like, we've actively got the Batman Chapter 2 being penned right now by Matt Reeves and Mattson Tomlin. We've got Joker 2 being shot right now. These are 2 actively happening DC projects that aren't set in the DC universe. Apparently, J.J. Abrams and Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Superman movie is still actively happening. And then, as what we've had said by James Gunn before, even though they want the DCU connected across comics, video games, animations, and movies, we know that there's going to be some outside of those other mediums as well. So video games, of course. set out the DC universe. Because imagine if we only had connections to the DCU, you would have never had the Arkham games and animated stuff, whether it's something as random as Gotham by Gaslight or whatever. So things like that are still going to happen. I suppose you could also count Keanu Reeves' Constantine 2 as technically an Elseworld other DC-esque project, right? So yeah, it's actively happening, and there probably will be new announcements one day. I think they're going to just concentrate on what they have to work with in the short term, like the DCU, phasing out the old DCEU movies, and then look to the future. And so guys, I think that wraps up today's news roundup. Again, I really wouldn't be surprised. I think there's only been one day off this week from DC News, but most days, by the time I upload these videos, is actually the time James Gunn's day starts, I think, and that's when he goes through Twitter a little bit, and without fail, around the same time most days of the week so far in the past couple of weeks, there's been some form of response on some version of social media, whether that's Twitter or Mastodon. So if there's anything mad, just know I'll always follow up on it the next day. But this is the most recent news from the past 24 hours. I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, going to be reading every single one of your comments, so make sure you leave your theories, your speculation, your thoughts on everything that we discussed, your ideas. Give this video a like. Please consider subscribing if you are brand new here. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see people of the new, DCU, and old, and whatever else world there is out there in the next video. Goodbye.